So we'll have a brief discussion on Albert Camus' Nobel Prize acceptance speech. Camus delivered this speech on the 10th of December in 1957. The Nobel Prize acceptance speech is popularly known as the banquet speech. It is usually held at the City Hall in Stockholm, which is the capital of Sweden. And here you can see the venue of the Nobel Prize banquet, that is the City Hall, which is a major tourist attraction in the Swedish capital, Stockholm. Well, a short bio of Albert Camus. He was born in 1913, just before the First World War started, and he died in 1960. Well, he was a French journalist, writer, novelist, playwright, and philosopher. He expounded the philosophy of the theory of the absurd. Well, Camus was very modest, very humble, and he tried to avoid fame. He was modest, humble, and tried to avoid fame because of his social background, his family background. Because here are the reasons for that. Camus' childhood situation was very, very modest because his father died when he was an infant. His father died in the First World War when Camus was still an infant, a very small child. And after his wife died, well, he was alone with his deaf and illiterate mother. You can just think of the situation, the condition of such a family in a third world country like Algeria. And then at the age of 25, Camus went to France, and here his concerns in life that tell us what exactly he is. Camus strongly believed that writing, that is the work of an artist, was a political act. It had its own politics. Well, as a journalist for leftist newspapers, he worked from 1943 to 1947, and it was the Second World War years, that is 1944 to 1948, the World War II years that produced his most well-known books. For example, in 1942, he published his seminal essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. The Myth of Sisyphus was published in 1942, in which he explains his theory of the absurd. The theory of the absurd. The theory of the absurd, in simple terms, we know that there is a human tendency to seek inherent values and meaning in life. Every human being tries to explore, try to find out the inherent value. What is the value in life? What is the meaning in life? But in the long run, we understand that in life life is something meaningless. Life has some purposelessness. It is purposeless, it is meaningless, and it is chaotic, and also it is irrational. There is no rationality, there is no order, there is no form, there is no meaning, there is no purpose in life. This is what every human being realizes, finds out in the long run. And this is the gist of, this is the cream of the theory of the absurd propounded by Albert Camus through his essay, the seminal essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, in 1942. See, a human tendency to seek inherent value and meaning in life, and the human inability to find any in the purposeless, meaningless, chaotic, and irrational world or universe. That is the theory of the absurd. So this is what he propounded through his seminal essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, in 1942. And then in the same year, 1942, he published his uh, famous novel, The Stranger, in which he illustrates, he elucidates, he illustrates the theory of the absurd. His other well-known works are Caligula, for example, which was published in 1938, The Plague, which was published in 1947, The Fall, 1956, Exile and the Kingdom, 1957. Well, Camus' search for moral order found its expression in the philosophy of art, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature at a very young age of 44 in 1957. Remember, he was the second youngest recipient of the Nobel Prize for Literature in history. You know who was the youngest? The youngest was Joseph Rudyard Kipling, who is best known for his Jungle Book, the author of the Jungle Book. Kipling received the Nobel Prize for Literature at the age of 41 in 1907, at the age of 41. And after Kipling, well, it was Albert Camus, the youngest, the second youngest man to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. And Albert Camus was killed in a car accident in 1960. Well, that was the end of his journey of life, Albert Camus. Well, as far as this Nobel Prize acceptance speech is concerned, the banquet speech is concerned, Camus delivered the speech upon receiving the Nobel Prize for Literature award on the 10th of December 1957. And in this speech, in this banquet speech, he spells out, he makes clear, he explains his philosophy of the art and the artist, the philosophy of art, the role of art, the responsibility of the artist, the role of the artist. What is art? What exactly is art? What exactly is the artist, the role of the artist? The artist, he says, Camus says, is a voice of resistance and an instrument of freedom. Well, this is the gist of his philosophy. The artist is a voice of resistance. Resist what? Resist oppression. Resist oppression from the government, from the ruling class. Resist oppression. Resist persecution. Resist slavery. Resist bondage. That is number one. Number two, the instrument of freedom. Well, he should work for freedom. He should fight against bondage, fight against slavery, and fight for freedom, fight for independence. Artist has no existence without his fellow men and society. Well, remember, an artist, a painter, a writer, a literator, well, he is one. He is one with the society. He is one with his fellow men. Well, he should pledge his solidarity with the society, the fellow men, the poor men. And the artist's duty is to reflect the silence of the unknown prisoner. Well, remember, 1957, at that period, was the period of the struggle for liberation. That is Algerian, a struggle for freedom. Algerian independence, the War of Independence, 1957. Well, Algeria was fighting for freedom from France, from the occupation of France. Well, during a freedom struggle, well, the ruling class, puts in prison a large number of hundreds of thousands of fighters, freedom fighters. And well, nobody knows what exactly is happening to those people who are in prison. So they are silent. So the silence of the unknown prisoner. And it is the duty of the artist to reflect, to resound, to reflect, to resound, to magnify to the whole world, to proclaim to the whole world the silence of the unknown prisoner. For what? In the service of truth and liberty. Well, this is his duty. This is the duty of the writer, of the artist. Service of truth and service of liberty. Well, this is the theme of the essay. And as for the summary of the essay, the summary of the speech, well, it is in 9 paragraphs. It is contained in 9 paragraphs. Paragraph number 1. Albert Camus, first of all, he thanks the Academy, the Swedish Academy, the Nobel Academy, for the award, and says it is beyond his merits. He says he doesn't deserve the prize. It is beyond his merit. Of course, it is true that every artist desires recognition. That's very natural. Every human being. Well, Milton says it is the last infirmity of the noble mind. Every human being, every man desires recognition, popularity. Well, you want to be known. You want to be recognized. You want to become popular. That is the desire of every living soul. But Camus says, but he is very young. He is not mature enough. Rich only in doubts. His mind is full of doubts. His mind is full of questions. Questions that struggle for answers. His work is still in progress. He is still working. And he lives in the loneliness of his work. He is solitary, lonely. He is always engaged in his work. He is involved in his work. And suddenly, all on a sudden, well, he is young, rich in doubt, work in progress, lives in loneliness of work. Suddenly, he finds himself in the center of attraction. The whole world, the eyes of the whole world are on him. Everybody is looking at him in the center of attraction. And he finds it very difficult to accept the honor. He says, it is very difficult for me to accept this award because there are other more eligible writers in Europe. There are more popular, more famous, more important writers in Europe. So long as they are there, so long as those writers are there, I find it very, very difficult to accept this prize. And his own native country, which is Algeria, well, he was born in Algeria. He was an Algerian. And his own native country, it is in trouble. What is the trouble that his native country is undergoing? Because it is fighting, it is engaged in the freedom struggle. It is fighting for freedom from France. Paragraph number 2. He felt that a turmoil within. So, well, he felt that a turmoil within. His inside is boiling. He is very young. He is still working. His mind is full of doubt and all such things. There are more popular, more important writers in Europe. All these things are troubling him. He regained the peace by reconciling to the possession of a big fortune. Well, this prize carries a mammoth purse, a lot of money. Camus feels that he cannot live up to the award by resting on the achievement. Well, he cannot take rest. He cannot simply rest on the achievement because his responsibility has increased. He has become a more responsible person. Since he cannot find anything else to support him, he was looking everywhere for a support. Well, he couldn't find any support. And so what does he do? He finds the idea that he has of his art and the role of the writer. So he thought he would talk about the role of what exactly is his art. What exactly is the role of his art, and what exactly is the role of the writer, the artist? So he tells them what the idea is in simple words. He is trying to put into words his idea of the art and artist. Paragraph number 3. Camus says that he cannot live without his art. Well, he cannot live without his art. Now, to live, he needs his art. He cannot live without his art. He needs it. Why? Because art allows him to live on one level with his fellow men. On one level with his fellow men. When he writes, when he works, when he is involved in his artistic creations, he feels that he is one, he is an equal with his fellow men. Art can stir the greatest number of people. It is a very, very powerful weapon, art. Why? It can stir, it can activate, it can stir the greatest number of people by giving them a clear picture of the common joys and sufferings. Well, we can give the ordinary people, the ordinary citizens, the poor men and women, a clear picture of the world, the clear picture of the situation, the condition of the common people, the common joys and sufferings. It makes the artist one with others. Well, with the help of the art, the artist can pledge solidarity. He can tell the world that I am with you, I am one with you. A person chooses to be an artist only to be a different man. Well, to become an artist, to become a writer, to become a painter, well, it's something very great. It makes you a different man. You become a different man when you become an artist. But remember, you cannot be a different man. Being a different man, you cannot get the support of the world. He cannot maintain his art unless he is one with others. You should tell the world that I am one among you. You cannot retain your position by being a different man, a man different from others. The artist should be one with others. That is why the true artist, he scorns nothing. He looks down upon nothing. He respects everything. He respects every single human being, every act of the ordinary man. He is obliged to understand. An artist is supposed to understand the world, not judge. He is not supposed to pronounce judgment. He is not supposed to evaluate and pronounce judgment. Verdicts, oh, this is good, this is bad. No, he is not supposed to do that. He should understand. He should sympathize. He should sympathize with the world. He should be one with the world. The artist takes sides in this world only with the society. Well, remember there are two classes, the ruling class and the ruled class. The ruling class, the government, and the ruled, the ordinary citizens. Who should the artist support? The artist should support the ruled, the ordinary people, the ordinary citizens, not the ruling class. Why not support the ruling class? Because he has his reasons. Paragraph number 4. Well, the writer's role is not easy. It is not, the role of a writer is not easy. He cannot simply serve the government. The writer cannot simply serve the government. He cannot serve the ruling class. He should serve the people. He should side with the people. He should support the people. Otherwise, if the artist doesn't support the people, well, he'll be alone. He'll be left alone. He'll be abandoned. He'll be abandoned by the world. He'll be abandoned by the people. He'll be deserted by the people. He'll be alone with no art. Well, his art will have no value. His art will have nobody to appreciate, nobody to support him. The government machinery will not free him from his isolation. The government will not support him. The government expects you to support the government, but the government will never support you. The ruling class needs your support, but they will never support you. But the silence of an unknown prisoner will end his exile. In a government, the acts of the government will not end his exile. He is an artist, a writer. He is always an isolated person. He is always a lonely person. Well, there is something that can end his isolation. There is something that can end his loneliness. That is the silence of the unknown prisoner. It is the duty of it is the responsibility of the writer to make known, to magnify what? The silence of the unknown prisoner, and that will certainly end his exile. The writer should not forget that silence. He should make that silence resound. He should proclaim, he should make the whole world hear the silence of the unknown prisoner by means of his art. That is the duty of the artist. The writer's job is not easy. He can win the heart of the people. How? By accepting two tasks. A writer is supposed to accept, to take upon himself two tasks. Number one, serve the truth. Number two, serve the liberty. Stand for truth, stand for liberty. Fight for truth, fight for liberty. This is the role. This is the responsibility. These are the two tasks that a writer is supposed to take upon himself. The writer's task is to unite the maximum people, to organize people, to unite people. That is the task of the people. To organize people, to unite people for what? To fight against lie, to fight against slavery, to fight against bondage, to fight against bondage, to fight against servitude, and to fight for liberty, to fight for truth. The writer's task is to unite maximum people. So, his art must not compromise with lies. He should not support lies, because the ruling class, the governing class, the government, they always try to spread lies, tell lies, in each and everything they tell lies. And it is the duty of the artist to not to compromise with lies. And servitude, no, because servitude, no, bondage, because we need as citizens of the world, we need liberty, we need freedom. It is our birth. Freedom is our birthright. So we need that. We should fight for that. The nobility of the writer's craft is rooted in two difficult commitments. The nobility of the writer's craft. This is the duty of every artist. What? Number one, refuse to tell lie. Don't tell lies. No, I won't tell lies. Number two, resist oppression. Resist oppression. Resist oppression on the part of the government. Like others of his generation, well, the people of his generation, his contemporaries, people, who are living with him, his own contemporaries, the people of his generation, he survived the dark periods of life by a feeling that to write today was also a commitment to bear together with them the misery and hope. Well, that was perhaps the darkest period of history. Between, he was born in 1913 and he was speaking in 1957. The period between 1913 and 1957. Two world wars, First World War and Second World War. Then Spanish Civil War, the concentration camps, well, prisons, imprisonment, slavery, oppression, persecution. Well, it was perhaps the darkest period in human history. He says, there's a commitment. As an artist, I have a commitment, I have a responsibility to bear together, to tolerate, to put up with, to bear together with them the misery and the hope. Well, they were miserable. It was a hopeless world. It was a dark period. Those men who faced the worst trials, the trials and tribulations of life, like two world wars, Spanish Civil War, the concentration camps, and the prisons, are now supposed to bring up their children in the shadow of nuclear war. After all these things, after the First World War, after the Second World War, the Spanish Civil War, the concentration camps and prisons, now there is another threat. There is another shadow. The world is under another cloud. The nuclear war. Well, they cannot be blamed. People like me, people of my age, they cannot be blamed if they become nihilists. If they believe that life is meaningless, life is worthless, life has no meaning. If they believe like that, if they become a nihilist, well, you can't blame him. However, they are now engaged in learning to live in disaster. But there is one thing. They are trying to learn They are trying to cope up with. They are trying to accommodate themselves to the new situation, the new environment of disaster, learning to live in disaster, to work against what? The instinct of death that is active today. Well, the entire world, the big powers, the great powers, the superpowers of the world, they are researching. They are researching on how fast, how effectively to put an end to the world, to destroy the world. So the instinct of death is very active today. And it is our duty. And we are, as people, we are learning to live in disaster, to work against such instincts, the instincts of death that is very active. Each generation, he believes, every generation of human beings has a duty to reform the world, to reform, to bring something new, to do something new to the world and the generation. But our generation may not succeed. But it is our duty to work for it. The next generation or the generation after next might succeed. But it is a greater task. Our biggest task is to prevent the world from destroying itself. The world is, as I said, the world is researching on how effectively to destroy the world. And it is our duty to stop the world, to prevent the world from destroying itself. We should work for that. Every generation, well, this generation has a corrupt history. People are trying to rewrite history, to distort history. It's an age of corrupt history, lost revolutions, crazy technology, a technology that is inventing, that is trying, that is experimenting to produce the most powerful weapon. That is crazy technology, dead gods, outdated ideologies, mediocre, destructive powers reign, and intelligence, the intelligentsia, the intellectuals, paying lip service to tyrants, the tyrants of Europe, Hitler, Mussolini. Well, it has to re-establish the dignity of life and death. This is our prime task, to re-establish what? The dignity of life and the dignity. We should be able to live in dignity. We should be able to die in dignity. We should never be able to live and die in prisons. That is something ignoble. That is something shameful. That is an insult to humanity. Well, it is our prime duty to re-establish the dignity of life and death. It has to restore peace among the nations, the warring nations. The whole world was engaged in fighting against each other. So it is our duty to establish, to restore peace among nations, to reconcile labor and culture, and remake what? The rule of law. Well, it is chaotic. There is chaos. There is no rule of law. Nobody respects any rule, any law, any rule, no regulations, nothing. There is no order. There is complete chaos. It is rising everywhere. Well, this is something positive. In different parts of the world, in different destinations, in different centers of the world. Well, it is rising everywhere to the challenge of truth and liberty. People have started to fight for truth and liberty, and they are ready to die for it. It deserves to be saluted. It should be respected. And Camus dedicates this Nobel Prize to this generation of people who lived in the darkest period of history, and they are engaged in the noble task of, in the noble work of trying to re-establish the dignity of life and death, culture, labor, to reconcile labor and culture, well, to fight for truth and liberty. And he says, I dedicate this Nobel Prize to this generation. Well, the writer is like any other comrade in arms, very vulnerable. Anything may happen to him. He's at risk. His life is at risk, but very obstinate, very stubborn, unyielding. He's very strong, unjust. Others might feel that I'm unjust. I'm fighting. When they see me, when the ruling class, when they see me in weapon, in arms, well, he might say this is unjust. But no, I am impassioned for justice. I am fighting for justice. He is devoted, the artist is devoted to erect artworks, to erect sculptures, to erect artworks, to stop disaster, to stop the world, to prevent the world from destroying itself. The writer must march towards goals of truth and liberty. Failure is sure to come. We may not succeed, but Camus never gave up the light. This nostalgia gave him more clarity of his craft. It helps him to support, well, this nostalgia, this dedication, this belief. It helps him to support those silent men, the silent men, the silent men who live in captivity, in prisons, the silent men who live in the memory of lost happiness. Well, they are living in bondage. They are living in incarceration. They are living in prisons. They are silent. There is nobody to magnify, to amplify, to amplify their sounds. And it is the duty of the writer to amplify the silence of those men who live in the memory of the lost happiness. And this is what Camus is. He receives the award as an honor. He says, well, it is a great honor. It's an honor not to me. It's an honor given to all his comrades, all the people who fight for truth and freedom. His comrades who have received only misery and persecution in life. They know only two things. Only misery and persecution. Troubles and trials and tribulations. Persecutions, oppression, misery. Well, I am dedicating this Nobel Prize to those men of my age, those men of my generation, who have received only two things in their life: misery, troubles, and persecution, oppression in life. And Camus thanks the Academy and pledges, faithful, I'll be faithful to you. That is the essay. This is the summary of the essay. This is the summary of the speech. Well, we'll have a look at the essay. Well, questions could be put in different ways. Well, look at the essay question. This is a famous comment on his accept the speech, the banquet speech. Camus' conception of his role as an artist further poses his commitment to artistic creation as a religious commitment. Whose comment is it? Stephen Abler examined this statement with reference to Albert Camus' Nobel Prize acceptance speech. Or, it could be put in simple words. In the Nobel Prize acceptance speech, in the banquet speech, Albert Camus spells out his philosophy of the art. The philosophy of the art, the artist, and the role of the writer. Explain, elucidate, substantiate. Well, I have prepared the essay, as usual, 5 paragraphs. This is the introduction. Nobel Prize acceptance speech, the banquet speech, was delivered by Albert Camus on December 10th, 1957, the 10th of December 1957. In the speech, he explains, he spells out his philosophy of art and artist. This is what he does. To him, to Camus, the artist is a voice of resistance and instrument of freedom. He has no existence, the artist has no existence without his fellow men and society. It is a duty of the artist, it is his duty to resound, to magnify, to amplify the silence of the unknown prisoner in the service of truth and liberty. This is introduction. Paragraph number 2. Camus needs art. Why does he need art? Why is he an artist? What is his role? What is his responsibility? Camus needs the art because it allows him, the art allows him to live on one level with his fellow men. To live on one level, to become an equal, not a different man, not a man different from his fellow men. On one level with his fellow men, to pledge his solidarity with the fellow men. Art can stir the greatest number of people. It's a very powerful weapon. It can stir. It can activate. It can energize. It can put into action the greatest number of people by giving them a clear picture of common joys and sufferings. It makes the artist one with others. A person becomes an artist only to be a different man, because artists are highly respectable figures. They are different. They are different from common man. But remember, a person becomes an artist to be a different man. But in the end, the artist realizes that he cannot maintain his art unless he is one with others. Now, he cannot live separately. He cannot live separately from others. Now, he has to be one with others. Unless the people, the common man, feels that the artist is one with him, his fellow man, then his art will succeed. Then only his art will succeed. Unless he is one with others. That is why the true artist scorns nothing. Never look down upon anything. Never look down upon the common man. Scorn nothing. Feel contempt for nothing. Respect everything. Respect others. Respect others' work. Respect others' words. He is obliged to understand. Try to understand. Try to sympathize. Never judge. Never be like a judge. Never be like a Supreme Court judge. The artist takes sides in this world only with the society. Take sides. Support the common man. Support the society. The writer should serve people, not the government. Well, there are two classes, the ruling class and the ruled class. The government and the citizens. Who should, the question is, who should a writer support? A writer should support the people, the society, not the ruling class. Otherwise, if you don't support, if the artist doesn't support the artist will be alone with no art. There will be nobody to appreciate. There will be nobody to support his art. Only the silence of the unknown prisoner will end his exile. Well, there is only one thing that can make him popular, that can make him survive. That is the silence of the unknown prisoner. The silence of the man, the silence of the hundreds of thousands of people who are living unknown, unheard of. The people who are behind bars, the people who are put in prisons, their silence, it should be amplified. The writer should make that silence resound, amplify by means of his art. It is his duty to amplify, to magnify, to resound the silence of the unknown prisoner. He can win the heart of the people only by accepting two tasks. It is the duty of the artist to accept two tasks. Number one, the service of truth. Number two, the service of liberty. Support truth. Support freedom. Never support lie. Never support bondage. The writer's task is to unite maximum people. The nobility of the writer's craft is rooted in two commitments. Well, he is supposed to have two commitments. Number one, refuse to tell lie. Refuse. The government, the ruling class always tells lies. Refuse to support it. Refuse to tell lie. Number one, it was one of the biggest weapons of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi had two most powerful weapons. Number one, truth. Number two, non-violence. So similarly, refuse to tell lie. Never tell lies. Never support lies. Number two, resist oppression. Resist oppression. So stand for truth. Stand for freedom. Resist lie. Resist oppression. The writer is like any other comrade in arms. The writer, the artist is like any other comrade in arms. Like any other freedom fighter. He is vulnerable. Anything may happen to him at any time. His life is at risk. Vulnerable, but obstinate, but never yield. Never yield. Unyielding. Very stubborn. Unjust. Others might feel that you are unjust because you are fighting. You are a man in arms. You are a fighter. This is unjust. But no. We are fighting for what? Impassioned for justice. Doing his work without shame of I am not shameful. I am not shameful of my work. I am full of pride. Devoted. Devoted to do what? Erect artworks in the destructive movement of history. Erect sculptures, erect artworks, in the destructive movement of history, because history is moving, the world is moving towards history. The world is researching, doing research to how best, to how fast to destroy the world. So it is our work, it is our responsibility, the writer's responsibility, to support, to install artworks that support the world, that support life, that respect, that support life, that support, you know, a life that is decent, a depth that is decent. Failures are sure to come. When you fight, when you work, when you struggle, failures are sure to come. Camus says he never gave up the light of freedom. This nostalgia gave him more clarity of his craft. It still helps him to support those silent men who live through the moments of memory of his brief and free happiness. In conclusion, well, Camus believes that the artist cannot maintain his art without his fellow men. It is impossible for the artist to maintain his art without the support of his fellow men. Only the silence of the unknown prisoner will save him from his. Nothing in this world will save him, will liberate him from his loneliness, from his solitude, from his exile. It is the popular support, the support of the people, the support of the masses, the support of the common man. That is the most essential thing. The artist should erect artworks in the destructive movement of history. Well, that is the end of part 1 of Albert Camus' discussion. Our discussion on the Nobel Prize acceptance speech delivered by Albert Camus on the 10th of December 1957.